9 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
This is Earl Benson, reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Foul Territory, Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central. Wednesday, 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
All right, now we can get started here. Little puppy co-host. We totally forgot that it was 9 o'clock, so we were a little bit late today for the people who are watching live. If anybody shows up, welcome for joining, or welcome. Thank you for joining. We'll flip over to the comments. We can actually see if that's the case. It's not, so we'll dig in. Looks like we'll be chatting just with the folks listening as a podcast this evening. So normally we would go over to Substack and take a look at what's happening on Substack, but we're not going to be able to do that today. So normally we would go over this. We're going to be looking at the description of this video for this one. I would put that behind the puppy there, but that monitor is out, so I guess we're going to have to put it here. There it is, and there. All right, so there's no point in bringing this up full screen because it's not going to look good no matter how we bring it up, but we'll put the puppy underneath no matter what. All right, so we go live on Fridays to wrap up what happened during the week, and not necessarily the new pistols that are on the market, but more about the different things that have been happening in regards to our rights and to our awareness and to our fight to normalize guns and to end this decade-long debate on whether or not property is responsible for the ills of society, and whether or not those who decide to possess property are legal to do so or warranted to do so morally or on the other way. So that's the big issue, and since that's the big fight, we take a look at those topics. Looks like Defense Dad is out there. Welcome. Have a good show. Prepping. Just finished prepping for Thunder on the Prairie tomorrow. Time to get some Z's. Have a good sleep. I thought it already started today, so everybody's having some pre-show stuff going on out there. Good to hear. And so our goal is to focus on the stuff that matters each week, that's moving the ball forward, and to document to some extent just the archive, I guess, the situation. But I really don't have the resources to fully document, so I don't attempt to suggest we're doing that fully, just as much as possible each week. So we do that by doing this live show, and what we're doing with the live show is essentially looking at the description of this video. And you can see that it's not very long today because I didn't get the chance to work on it as much this week as I can some weeks. And we take this information and we move it around the internet. The information is mostly links to YouTube videos and other projects that are being done that move the ball forward. And the goal is to inform people who use this as an update or a place for that, and then to archive just for the future, so that when people are researching this stuff in the past, in the future, I guess, we're assisting them a little bit to make that easier for what we're talking about here, which is our rights, right? Our rights are acknowledged and how often our rights are at risk. And those are the bigger picture things. So we do that by taking this data and moving it to Substack mostly, which gives them the ability to format it, and it looks a lot better. It's much easier to follow along, and it gives you something to actually visually pay attention to. But Substack is a blog system. It's a place where a lot of people who write put their content, and people who read show up and appreciate that content. In fact, we have a paid subscriber over on Substack. Thank you very much for that. We didn't solicit that. I didn't even know it was a thing until it happened a couple months ago. So if anyone does want to subscribe to our Substack, you can now. We also have a Patreon, which is our membership system, our way to support our projects out there. And this information gets put over on our Patreon blog. We also put it into a newsletter occasionally. As we have more time to work on this stuff, the newsletter goes out more often. Then we have Instagram, and the big thing is the podcast. Most people will listen to this as a podcast, and just recently we updated to, or I guess expanded to even more podcast platforms thanks to Podbean, which is a system that lets us manage the podcast. So it's cool to see how many people are listening in the future. And thanks for the people that provide feedback. We know that most of the people are listening on Apple devices, on iTunes, and it's cool to be able to get that feedback. All right, so that's the project. That's the goal, at least on our Friday night show, is to wrap up the week with the important stuff and get it out there. Try to have some fun and try to hopefully show you some stuff that you may not have seen each week. And we're not as scared to bring other stuff into the mix that's maybe adjacent to firearms, as long as it helps, with the overall project goals. That being said, I really try to look at the news of the week. I'm not going to be able to this week because I've already started late and I didn't put this show together. I didn't have time to do it today. So the news of the week is going to suffer, but most of that comes from the NSSF newsletter that comes out for the industry each Friday afternoon, which is why I can't prep that ahead of time. But it is possible for someone to go just subscribe to that newsletter and get most of the data that I post each week, because that seems to be the most concise list or bullet points of each week of what's been going on. It is a little wordy, and it does take some time to comb it through, get to the bullet points in here. So that's why it gets sacrificed occasionally or often. But we do focus on 2A stuff, then some gun stuff, because there's plenty of gun stuff going on that's valuable. Then we have the 2A radio shows that are worth a lot to our community that we focus on each week, and we'll take a look at the calendars, things for like Thunder on the Prairie that's happening this weekend. Then we'll take a look at some military interview shows that we follow, and then the stuff that we did this week. I think we did some pretty interesting stuff this week. Did I mention that I have some Japanese mayonnaise here? So if that helps people get interested in the show, Puppy's certainly interested in Kewpie mayonnaise. This is 500 grams of, I'm pretty sure it's Japanese mayonnaise. Maybe it's not. Oh no, it says product of Japan right on there. It's Japanese mayonnaise. So this show is not brought to you by Japanese mayonnaise. My dog is completely disinterested in it. It's 500 grams. But if the Japanese mayonnaise manufacturer wants to support the show, hey, we got Patreon. There's a list at the bottom. Lets you know that Patreon is how we keep the servers running, and we pay for the software that we use. And every once in a while, we pay for our time, but not so much. All right, let's dig into the show this week. And let's see. So we got the 2A stuff is our first thing we're going to chat about. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I should say May was Mental Health Awareness Month. He's being really weird. Did he know Woods was coming? Why is he being weird all of a sudden and then Woods shows up? Coincidence? Look how weird he's being. I don't know if you can tell. He's being really weird. I think he's super tired. More tired than normal. But he had a bath today, so I think that brought him down to a level of cool that he doesn't get when he doesn't have a bath. All right, well. See how weird he's being? This seems weird to me. He's normally not like this. He's very handsy today, too. He's sleepy in a different way. Some days he's sleepier than other days in different ways. All right. Yeah, lay down. Oh, now he's going to be licky? No, he's not licky. All right, so May was Mental Health Awareness Month. The last week of the month, Brooke focused on that for her Suicide Prevention Saturday show. Probably the most important thing that happens consistently for our my goal, which is to end this whole thing. We all know from listening to this show, hopefully, and because we listen to Brooke's show and because it's a number that's been around for a while that we shouldn't ignore, that 2 out of every 3 deaths with a firearm are suicides. And we know that the other side is more than happy to dance on those numbers and suggest that gun owners are responsible, gun owners are to blame, gun owners are the reason that those numbers happen, when we all know that lots of things are involved there. And there's things that can help the situation, which takes it off the plate. And that's beneficial because we help save lives. We help people get out of those situations that are frustrating for them, and they get to that ultimate level. And then, of course, we pull those numbers off of the table for the antis to use. So it's ultimately beneficial, and it's a great strategy going forward that for some reason isn't taken up by the national level organizations. I'm just say it all. They very occasionally provide a little bit of lip service, but considering the massive amount of resources they have compared to anything else in our sector, as far as money and time and the ambition to ideally to to end the debates instead of just endlessly be in the debates, endlessly be the focus of the debate or something. It's frustrating that Brooke is the only project that happens on a regular basis towards this. We have one national level organization that's doing good work, and then we have a couple that stand around being in the sector, and then we have a bunch of veterans organizations that do great work, but they could care less about 2A, and we have a lot of potential there, a lot of obligation to meet with those groups so that they don't sacrifice 2A inadvertently, and then there's positive stuff with 2A. So there's so much stuff in that sector, in that area, that realm, that is positive, and Brooke is the only one putting effort into it. It's a little bit frustrating to talk about suicide prevention because the logarithms will see the word suicide and they don't care that the word prevention is in there. So they'll take it out on our channels, sometimes blatantly and sometimes subtly. And channels suffer when they bring it up. So I guess you could almost say that's an excuse, but it's a lame, weak, pathetic excuse if that's why channels aren't interested in the subject, because they're more interested in their success or their ability to make money on a dumb platform that just needs to be educated to understand there's a difference. When I do tie-dye, Tiedye, if you spell that wrong, it gets crazy. And if you say it and the autocomplete misunderstands, that can get crazy. But you know what? It doesn't, because enough people make money on tie-dyes that you don't get into that trouble. So that's because the logarithms have been taught. They don't care to teach our logarithms over here. And that's because as a community, we haven't asked the platforms to do that. They can and they would if they understood the consequences that are being created by nothing right now, the acts of no one, or very, very few. I don't want to say no one. We know a couple of people that strive to change things the correct way, but very few people are aware of that or support that. Anyway, so Brooke is the only one putting that effort out. That's why she'll be pretty much pegged at the top of our efforts each week, since what we're trying to do is promote the stuff that happens consistently with an actual focus. Speaking of that, Guns and Mental Health Live with Jacquelyn. I don't know how to say her name. I'm saying it wrong. Clark, and she's a co-owner of a gun shop in Denver that caters to people that aren't necessarily gun people, I guess. Not just first-time gun people, but a different style of gun shop, a more modern, quote-unquote, style of gun shop. And she also happens to be the shop where Walk the Talk America was first introduced publicly, maybe. something like that. They talk about it in the episode. It was a pretty interesting episode talking about how their shop in Denver, not going to remember the name of the shop, so I should probably look it up, but I'm not going to. But a pretty good interview, and they're talking about their shop being in one of the first shops to work with the idea of holding on to people's firearms during times of stress, and they did that without taking possession of them. That's super cool. So we had some pretty interesting back and forth during that one. It would be cool if more people watch those live, but they're on infrequently, unscheduled, sometimes a little bit of advance warning, but often without any, on Friday morning. No, yeah, Thursday or Friday mornings, I think. So really actually a pretty tough one to watch live unless you got nothing else to do. So I've only caught a couple of them live, but this one was a good one to catch because there was nobody else there. So it pretty much was just part of the panel, honestly. So it was a pretty good chat if you want to check that one out. They do good work, and they are doing it in a way that doesn't rely, that's the way to say it, on government intervention. So it's something that works in spite of government intervention, and it'll work without government intervention. So really dig the way that they're approaching the subject of removing guns from a stressful situation voluntarily without the government involved at all. Which is a great solution, and it shows that the gun community is working on things without being prompted or regulated or obligated or any of that by the government. Or by anything, really, except for our own interests. All right, so the next one in the list is Gun Freedom Radio. Had Professor Yamane. His book is shipping. It's in the mail. I should have it soon. It's already in the mail to me. So that means they're shipping. I pre-ordered it like a bunch of people. So if you had a chance to pre-order it, thank you. It helps a book. As I understand it, we all know how there's logarithms that kind of determine how well sales are going to go for something. So pre-orders can help kind of prime the pump for a new book in sales in 2024. So thanks to all the people who pre-ordered the book. I'll be getting one, I don't know, sometime soon. I have a bunch of stuff to do tomorrow, but maybe Sunday, assuming I get the book tomorrow and I'm able to pick it up. I just thought of that. Depending on what I'm doing tomorrow, I might not be able to even pick it up if it shows up tomorrow. But I'm not guaranteed. I haven't tracked it yet. It's somewhere. It's either going to show up tomorrow or Monday. Monday, it's probably not such a big deal. I might be able to take some time and read some of it, but I figured I'd read some of it for the folks that don't have a chance to get it by audiobook yet. If I did it Monday, would that help people driving home? I don't know if it would help people coming home from Thunder on the Prairie or not. But since I'm going to read it anyway, I figure I might as well just go live and read it out loud. He can sue me if he wants, but I'm going to do it anyway. Then we've got, so that's cool that his book is coming out, and he was on Gun Freedom Radio. They do their shows so much more infrequently now than they used to that I don't watch every one of them. They also do a lot of political stuff, which I suppose is important for some people and interesting for some people, but I've only got so much time. So I'm interested in the gun stuff and the gun owners' rights. But when it gets into plain old politics and, other issues, I've got opinions, I suppose, but they're not educated because I don't spend any time watching shows about that stuff. But Gun Freedom Radio had Professor Yamane on, and I thought they'd met before, but they were very cordial and acted like they had a big rift. So it was an interesting interview. Liberals lawfare has weaponized the ATF against. See, I hate doing it this way because I don't remember even whose video this is. So I guess we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way by opening up every video. Oh, this is just Representative Harriet Hagerman. Anyway, some representative has a YouTube channel with 30,000 subs. That's pretty cool. And posted a chunk of the ATF testimonials. And is this because of, I'm trying to remember. Was this because that somebody got killed in a raid? I think that's what it was. And they were asking him to justify a raid at whatever time it was when they had options that wouldn't be so stressful and lethal. And anyway, that's a good, interesting clip that I found. Might be from Krabby Turtle. I feel like Krabby Turtle might have showed me that one on the X. Oh, let's see. Woods is saying, I've never read any researcher that I agree with 100%. Yamane has an interesting view. Yeah, exactly. He's a sociologist, and he only started hanging out with guns 15 years ago or 12 years ago or something. And he only hangs out with certain people, like, let's say, defensive gun use, but only like a certain clique of defensive gun use people. So he doesn't even delve into all defensive gun use at all. He delved into defensive gun use and hung out with like a crowd. So kind of like, hey, I like listening to music, or I like playing music, but I play blues. Okay, great. Well, you only play blues. You don't play music. You play blues. Oh, no, I really like music. I play the blues. Like, okay. Semantics, yes, you play music, but in reality, you play one type of music, and some people play other music, and then there's a lot of people that appreciate tons of different kind of music, and those people disagree with somebody who says, "Oh, I've only listened to blues and music. All music is slow and noisy and in a bar," like that kind of stuff. They're going to have some weird perspectives on stuff because they don't get around. But he's just starting, so learned a lot for an academic. But honestly, the gun community is a mile wide. Yeah, exactly. And that, I don't think he doesn't understand it, and he doesn't go around saying that this is all there is. But he kind of started out saying this is the way it is, and he kind of has to. Depending on how much stuff you listen to. I've now listened to his entire 7-part course, and watch the videos when they come out, and then I've watched a couple of his speeches and stuff, which are all iterations of each other. He doesn't come up with new stuff every time he opens his mouth. So, but the development, the evolution of that stuff that he says over time into the different audiences, he is getting different. He is growing, or there's more awareness coming into his stuff too. But at the same time, I suspect he's intentionally keeping a certain basic perspective because he's competing with a lot of the anti-gun shit. It's like he made a point on Gun Freedom Radio that he'll say gun violence, even though I think it was on Gun Freedom Radio that he says gun violence is all the time, even though gun violence is a dumbass thing to say, and he knows it, but he wants to make sure that the other side knows that he's speaking their language. So I get it. Like, he's doing it intentionally, but somebody that intentionally says blues is all music is still wrong, right? So the thing is, he was on Gun Freedom Radio. He was also on the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network with Gila, but I don't think I have it on here because I didn't get a chance to update it. So during NRA show, he sat down for quite a while. Was it 40 minutes? I don't think it was 40 minutes. It was either 20 minutes or 40 minutes with Armed Citizens Legal Defense Fund or network, I guess. And that was a pretty good conversation. And again, he's hawking his book or whatever, so it's an opportunity for him to have some of these conversations for the first time. But he's also not like, hey, I'm brand new and this is my thing. Now he's like, hey, I've been around for a little while and I've already written a book and now it's being published. So Woods is saying he does have good data and his citations are solid. He looks at that stuff. Right on. Ron Wayne is out there. Welcome. I don't know how many people are going to join us tonight because of the whole Thunder on the Prairie phenomenon. But I've recently started to look at this little box you can click on, and it'll tell you where your viewers are. So we got one viewer over on the podcast site. We have most of the viewers over on YouTube, big channel. And then we have another half of the viewers over on the X. And the X said it wasn't going to be broadcasting tonight, so I guess it is. But because I got an alert as I started the show that it wasn't going to broadcast tonight. But it's annoying that the API or the interface with X doesn't let people chat or comment. So I should probably just leave X open. Let me try. I'm going to leave X open. And if people who are listening on X want to be part of the show, do it tonight, because otherwise I'm going to quit opening this thing. It means I have to open up another window, and that's annoying for me. So I'm going to leave it open here and see if anybody comments during the show, but it does, yeah, it says we have a lot of viewers. Here's a tip. I don't know if you pay attention to what the guy who owns X says, but he posted the other day that seconds on platform is a major indicator for logarithm on X, meaning the more time you spend on X, the more time you do stuff on X, the more time you keep eyeballs on your X, the happier they're going to be and the better off they're going to treat your channel. So go live on X. That's what I'm saying. So thanks very much to the people on X. I don't really care too much about growing anymore, but it is interesting to see that the elements of growth are happening over on X, albeit unintentionally. Sometimes you just accidentally put all the pieces together at the right time in the right place, and something happens. And that's what's happening over on X, I suspect. So leave us a comment or prove to everybody that people on X don't comment while they're watching live stuff. Because look at all the stuff over here. Boom. I was on the DGS channel. Boom. There's Ron Wayne saying, hey. So that's what I can do when you're over on the YouTube. We can prove people are chatting over here. I would have to drag my X over to the screen like this. What's that? What's going on with that? You have to go look at X to see what that picture is all about. All right. So that was the 2A stuff. There's more 2A stuff. Let me grab my YouTube. You click on your YouTube and you open up in a new window. And then once your YouTube is open in a new window, look how slow my computer is. What's going on with this? I should have restarted my computer. Come on. Seriously? Then you click on, we could click on subscriptions. I'll just click on history. All right. So now we can take a look at the stuff that's been going on. So there's the professor talking to the law center. So he has one video where he's talking to the law group at NRA. This is a neat one about the new, the Jalisco New Generation cartel is preying on senior citizens with a timeshare scam, and they're making as much money with that as they are selling drugs right now. So think about how much money the cartels are making on elderly Americans via call centers. It's a whole new thing that they've been doing to branch out and to make more money. Maj talking about the libertarians. There's been quite a few of these snippets from the testimony with the ATF. I really wish I would have had time to watch that. There's Professor Yamane with Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. I think I've got the rest of this stuff in here. We'll find out. So that's one way you can go find out what you've been watching by clicking on your channel's history. So this one is the conversation it's 44 minutes long at NRA show that was posted by Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. 200 views in a day and 4 comments. And then if I get that to pause, then he's also, put up 2 of them. He was also on at that laws thing, doing a speech for the second time at the NRA lawyers group, which happens the day before the NRA show. So a little bit different one. That one's 27 minutes long. So if you're interested in Professor Yamane, you get a lot of Professor Yamane in the build up to his book coming out. Like I say, it's like literally in the mail right now. So stay tuned for a bunch of reviews of that book from everybody. And then I'm sure he'll be on a bunch of talk shows, a bunch of interview shows chatting about the book. Let's see, Ron is saying, I watched the old video on the M&P 15's MOE stocks. Is that even me? Let me go find it. I vaguely remember. I know what you're saying, what an M&P is, and what an MOE stock is. But probably going to be able to... Can't get it from anywhere. I have to type it in here. I'll just put in Smith. Hopefully I did it like SNW. MOE. One of these. 15 years ago. Holy moly. This is what we were doing 15 years ago. Before some people were born, we were doing these videos. Oh, this is a really old one.
This is a Smith & Wesson M&P 15 MOE edition. It's the Magpul original equipment. Comes standard with the Magpul MOE handguard, Magpul MOE flip-up sight. This is a flip-up sight, spring-loaded. Has the Magpul MOE buttstock, Magpul MOE pistol grip, and then, of course, a Magpul PMag magazine. The MOE differs from the CTR in that it doesn't have the friction lock, so it's like a regular buttstock. It does just lacks that friction lock to lock it up and take out the play. Also comes standard with the rubber butt pad. Real nice, comfortable stock. The MOE pistol grip differs from the Myad in that doesn't have removable front and back straps, and just comes with a standard plug.
So why am I sick of doing these videos? Because we did them endlessly 15 years ago. And what happens? A bunch of people come around and go, oh man, I got the right grip angle, blah, blah, blah. And then their rights still get wailed on. So playing with toys is awesome. And it was a lot of fun back in the day when I cared more about it. But I've been there and done that. And it doesn't save our rights. So I put almost no interest in it anymore. But I don't know if that was the video or not, but that's the kind of stuff we did back in the day. Oh, it is. So, what did that say? 2000 and it could have been, oh no, wait a minute. Yeah, it could have been 9 because I got that piece of multicam in 8, right? At the best shot show ever. I got that multicam in 8. That video was made in 9 at the beginning of YouTube. That camera was pretty shitty. I don't know if you could hear. There's like a noise in that camera because it was an old ass camera. Took me a long time before I switched out that camera too. But we would do those videos because there just wasn't a lot of video on the internet back then. So something like that where you could just present the essentially the rifle, right, and some of its features and a little bit of data about it was fodder for people to then have conversations about it. And sometimes they did that in the comments, but YouTube wasn't a big enough thing then. Back then you would watch that video and then go to a forum and have the real conversation about it. So anyway, that's kind of the format or the style of the time. You know, that's the way we did videos back in the day. Back in my day, that's the way we did the videos. Anyway, so that was a good segue into gun talk because although there was some other 2A related stuff, I didn't have a chance to really get it all tidy this week. Certainly a big week for rights in general. Definitely a big week for weak people. So WEEK, right? A period of time. It's definitely a week for the weakest of people, the people who have absolutely no ability to be strong. There's opportunity for them to flip flags upside down and post them. Talk about a bunch of horribly weak, wimpy people to flip flags upside down because of some bullshit that happens in politics. It's the most frustrating thing and the most, frustrating, I think is the word. When you think people are useful and you think that they're adults and that they've actually are capable, and then they prove that they're not by flipping a flag upside down because of a thing that happens on the news. Then you gotta, it's like, are we really fighting alongside these people? Or are they going to still be there when the time gets tough? Like, come on. What a weak ass thing to do this week. But anyway, we all won't bitch about that. This is a gun show, right? So we'll talk about the gun stuff. She Fires did a show, kind of an impromptu show in the car. We don't have any right to people's time and efforts online. So appreciate those folks that are doing good stuff while they do it. Again, we're not obligated. At some point, everyone is gone. And those people that are here never get appreciated enough. There's always somebody else who's doing something. There's always next week coming to watch the show. There's always, something. But we've had amazing lineups. We've had eras when there's been a lot of stuff going on. And think about it. We have a lot of people out there putting amazing stuff out there. She Fires is definitely in that list. Thanks to the people that support that show and interact with that one. That's a real show. That's not a production. That's not someone who's, on some weird ass projection to make fame or fortune or something, or somebody who's got ulterior motives. I mean, talk about legit, authentic, live. That's happening in our realm. Like, that's something you could watch and support. It doesn't cost you nothing to post the show on Sundays when it goes live. The logarithm is a mathematical equation. It says how many people are subscribed to this channel, how many people support that show or like repost that show, how many people show up live, how many people comment. It's just a bunch of freaking addition. It's literally not even a hard math problem. And then it says add all that up and then compare it to every other person that's doing anything. And since most of the people that are doing stuff getting 0 people to pay attention to them, any amount of attention you give to someone who's small or medium has an amazing return on the investment that you've put in, which is almost nothing. It helps the human being on the other end of the show because they see the people are out there and it's worth putting their time into putting stuff into the internet, and their channel grows, and that's usually the kind of thing that people look for to decide whether or not to keep doing what they're doing. So what you value, support it. Nobody else is. Or don't depend on somebody else to. Then we got the Gun and Gear Review podcast. One of Tony's shows that he is a co-host of. That one happens pretty much the same time as Ghost on Tuesdays. I usually listen to both at the same time. I don't know how many people listen to more than one show at once. That's a skill I acquired back in the olden days of gun channels. We're going to take a break in the middle of the show. A lot of people say you shouldn't even have dogs on your show. There's people that have told me that make more money than me, and they make money off of the gun community. Like, I don't make my money off the gun community. So there's people that make way more money off the gun community than I ever have. And they tell me that I shouldn't have a dog in this show. Like, I shouldn't even have a dog associated with this conversation right now because it's a gun conversation. But I got this chunk of cheese that I'm not eating. It's gross. But this dog seems to like gross chunks of cheese. And there he did. He ate it off of he's going to eat it off of a knife. That's dangerous. So we got baby puppies eating cheese off of knives on this show. There's knives flipping all around. Dog's going to poke an eye out or something. Let's chop a chunk off of this gross cheese. Would you eat this cheese? Look how gross it is. It's all slimy. It's not slimy. It's oily. It's a cheese made in Sweden, I believe. Swedish cheese. All right, don't poke yourself. No, he's able to eat it. He is interested in eating the oily cheese. Let's find out if his little friend over here. I gotta be way more careful with her because she'll jam herself on the knife to eat it. But she also, here's FYI, she also ate some of the cheese. So for people that are listening to this in a podcast, I brought out some of this Swedish cheese, and both dogs have eaten chunks and chunks of cheese. That's gross. All right, it's a gross cheese minute in the middle of the show. A lot of shows are doing that. It's real popular these days to have a segment in the middle of your show where you feed dogs old cheese. So I'm doing it just to keep up with the trends, with the fads. 9mm is a fad. Feeding cheese to dogs in the middle of the show is a fad. Got to keep up with them. All right, we'll get back to it over here. Tony does his show with the other people that are on his show, and they talk about guns and stuff. So you can listen to that one at the same time as Ghost, because Ghost almost always talks about guns and stuff. So I can definitely listen to two people talk about guns at the same time on medium volume. Let's see. Then we've got. Well, this is what happens when you don't pay attention to what you're copying and pasting, because somehow I put something weird in here. Rating interesting, part 28. Let's find out what I was trying to do. Oh, I see. So this is Alan Anchor over there making a video about cannons. What happened? Okay, here's what happened. That's me talking about them. So that's Cowboy from Alan Anchor talking about cannons, doing a short about cannons, and he's a kid. So he goes, rating interesting guns, part 28. See how the kids write with little pictures. So let's go ahead over back to YouTube, because we were just looking at YouTube, weren't we? And now let's type in, instead of Smith & Wesson MOE. Oh my goodness. What is going on? You're witnessing what's happening to me. This is YouTube. It's YouTube not doing what I'm wanting. All right. Now we're going to type in cannon. Is that how you spell it? Probably the way I spell it. So let's see what we got. Shooting a cannon 14 years ago. That one's boring, so I'm not going to play it. There's black powder cannon from 9 years ago. It's one of my cannons. That one looks like at the range somewhere back when I smoked. Here we go. This one, though, is only a minute, 20 seconds long. So this was some of my favorite cannons. I think I have 6 tiny cannons right now. I don't know. It's been a while since I looked at my tiny cannons, and every once in a while I buy one at a gun show and forget that I got it. I think I did buy one at a Wanamaker one time. But these are one of my favorite tiny cannons. They're 30 caliber.
And this one we've got set up aimed at this foam, and we've got the ball bearing in there.
So I'm shooting real ball bearings out of them, 30 caliber ball bearings with black powder and a cannon fuse, and they're all stainless. I think the bottom is actually aluminum, but the top is all stainless. And you light them with a lighter, like you should. Bam, look at that. That thing never stood a chance. See that? Bam. Super cool. So these are some of the funnest things you can get. And if you got kids, yeah, it's child abuse if you don't have a tiny cannon. I grew up with a really cool tiny cannon, and that's why I own 6 or whatever tiny cannons today. They're super fun. They're almost no cost compared to pretty much anything, compared to any gun. And you can get tiny ones that shoot BBs, which are okay, but this 30 caliber kind is the way to go. And there's some really neat ones out there. Keep your eye open. You'll see them all the time. All right. So next up is BB gun auction review. So that was pretty neat. We'll just play that one without sound. Now, why they would play a 9-minute video with a vertical, I don't know. What the hell? I don't know. There's no excuse for this. You can't watch this on your phone because it's a horizontally shot vertical. I don't know what they're doing, but don't see it. You're not going to see anything, but you can get the illusion of some stuff. You can get, some idea of what they have here. But this was somebody's BB gun collection, obviously. And it was up at Pot of Gold on Tuesday. This is probably the coolest BB gun that's ever been made, and it's a double barrel shotgun that looks and feels just like a real double barrel shotgun. It's the same weight and everything as a double barrel shotgun, but it's a BB gun, and it shoots 2 BBs, one out of each side. So probably the coolest BB gun ever. I think that one went for either $1,200 or $1,900. Then they also had, was it the first thing he pulls out? They also had one of the first BB guns ever, which also went for one of them went for $1,200 and the other one went for $1,900. So, hold on. I'm going to put the puppy down. That was pretty neat. It's been a while since I've even seen an old BB Daisy for sale. They are for sale every once in a while, though. I've never seen the shotgun for sale. I've only ever seen the shotgun a couple of times. Is that the old one? No, it's just... So there's quite a few old ones that I don't know enough about BB guns to know the biggest or the big deals about some of them. This one, though, is one that has a bayonet on it from World War I. It's like a World War I little kid training type of parade type of thing almost. Then they had a World War II one that didn't have a bayonet. And then they had, like I say, they had the oldest one ever. This little guy I bid on. Not that I like it that much. I just happen to know that that's like $300 worth of BB gun set right there, or more because they're always broken. One time I was looking it up for a video or something a long time ago, probably research on the book, and it was at $60. I owned that thing for $60 like most of the week, and then it ended up going for $90, which is still a very good deal if I was a collector, but I'm not rich and I don't need a BB gun that I don't want that much. I wanted the shotgun one, but I was nowhere near the realm of that one. And then the other thing that he never shows in this video, but I also was going to bid on, was a selection of just BBs. There was like 10 or 12, maybe more BB tubes from over the ages, from like the olden days up until, I don't know how modern they got. But that would have been pretty cool for the ammo collection, just to have a chunk of Daisy, like different eras of the BB tubes or whatever. But I was watching Ghost or something and I missed it. So it's Ghost's fault that I didn't get those BBs. You don't have to blame him. He'll feel bad enough knowing that he made my ammo collection lamer. So, because that went for $25, I would have definitely bid on that, I think. Yeah, that double barrel is super rare. I think I've heard of people in chats that said they owned one or their dad owned one or something like that or something, so they've seen them. But I knew of it when I was a little kid and then totally forgot about it until one day I was watching. There's a 3-hour video about the BB gun museum in Arkansas. So most people aren't going to get to Arkansas to see the museum. So if you're ever interested in spending 3 hours, it's super interesting, really. It's somebody that the museum isn't that large. It's just packed full of every piece of history from BB guns, essentially, or from Daisy at least. And somebody just records the curator of the museum talking for like 3 hours or something. It's really good. And I mean, there's so much history to BB guns. People don't even pay attention because they think they're toys or whatever. They are toys and everything, but they're super interesting. I'm also looking over here at the X, and do I have to refresh the X to get comments? So it does say that people are watching on the X. We appreciate it, but you're also challenged. You can't just watch. This is interactive internet here, so other channels might let you watch. I expect people to be part of the show, though. I mean, unless you're just like watching the internet, be part of the internet. Say something on these shows. That's why we go live. But otherwise, look, all the people over here on YouTube making comments and stuff. Did I say hey to Agorizer earlier? Welcome. I guess when I mute, it mutes on X also. Anyway, so that was the BB gun auction review. It was kind of a weak video because of the vertical part. But Pot of Gold posts massively good pictures of all of their stuff. So even though you only get a kind of an illusion of it, or they allude to the stuff in the video, you can go check out everything in detail at the website. I got a drink because I got the hiccups now. Actually, let's do a commercial for... Yeah, I know a lot of people thought, what's up with Gizzard? Back in the day, if we went on something like Wanamaker, we'd still do our shows. We would just do on what's called on remote. But Gizzard didn't do his show on remote. I don't know why. So that's between you and Gizzard. But here's a Gizzard commercial, thanks to Foss.
This is Earl Benson, reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Foul Territory, Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central. Wednesday, 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.
Yeah, even more people are watching over on the X now and still nobody's saying anything. Is that weird? Or is it just me? Maybe it's just a YouTube thing. We're used to having conversations with each other over here. Let's see. Ron Wade said he has watched that video. Very entertaining. Learned a lot. I'd love to go to Rogers, Arkansas any day. I think that's what that means. But heck yeah. And I was almost going to drive to Thunder on the Prairie, and Hillbilly was like, oh, just come down here. And I was like, don't tempt me, because I need like two things at Rogers, Arkansas, and then book over to the other town that I can't think of the name of, where the other museum is. But there's a second museum in Arkansas that's very good. The Saunders Museum in Arkansas is really good. And I have yet to get inside of that one. So at some point, we'll get on the road. Closer and closer. Closer and closer. Can't even tell you how close we are, but not that close, really. Anyway, speaking of cars, and speaking of road trips and almost going to Thunder on the Prairie, if we were to open up a Google map, which is a electronic version of a map, and so there's a Google map, and what's going on here? This is Tucson. So if we typed in Tucson, Arizona, and then we typed in directions, and then we said go to Dragon Man's shooting. Actually, no. If we said go to Firth, Nebraska, there we go, and then add another Tucson to that. There we go. So if you go from Tucson to Firth, you can go kind of through the Panhandle. I've never gone this way, but you would go through Dodge City, Kansas, right here, which would be pretty good. There's the Boot Hill Museum there that I've been past. I've visited once or twice, and then been past it a third time since they did the remodel. But I think I went past there at like 3 a.m. or something, or else 8 p.m. or something. So it was closed, and all I got to do was see the remodel. So I haven't been there past the remodel. But if you just on Google Maps, if you grab this and drag it over to Colorado Springs for either the return trip, probably the return trip, or the other trip going up, then you go past Dragon Man's, and you go past Red Dawn shooting locations, and you go past BMC Tactical, and I could go to this museum, which I need to check out. So that would have been a pretty nice trip. And in that trip, we would have gone past Dragon Man's. So Dragon Man's is awesome, and we live in the era of Dragon Man's. So anybody that hasn't been to Dragon Man's or refuses to go to Dragon Man's, you're making a decision, because Dragon Man's is there and it's open. You could go to it right now. More than once, twice at least, I've gone, you know what, I'm driving the Dragon Man's, and I drove to Dragon Man's. Now, granted, I was already on the road, and it was just a decision to decide to go to Dragon Man's also, but I have done that, and it is worth it. Trust me, it is worth going to Dragon Man's. I don't know why this won't open. Probably because of bad internet, I guess. I challenged everybody on X to say something, and guess what? Everybody laughed on X. So that's what happens when you challenge a bunch of people on X. So if you don't want your people on X to watch your show, ask them to participate in the show. Ask them to say something. So we're going to click on this again. Oh, crap. I shouldn't have just clicked on it. But so here's Dragon Man, being Dragon Man, in front of his existing 60,000 square foot. No, it's probably way bigger than that. But he's like, hey, go over here behind my house. So everybody knows Dragon Man lives over there. And look, he's got his equipment out. Uh-oh. So he goes, new garage. And I'm thinking, why would Dragon Man build that little tiny shed? Which I would really like that little tiny shed, by the way. I could really use that little shed. But look at this. I think he said this is 26,000 square feet. I know he said there's 26 cars in it. It might be 46,000 square feet. But this is Dragon Man's new garage. So he's building a new metal building up there on the other side of his house, in that berm that's right by his house. See, there's the place. So this is going to be out sort of behind the rock and roll rooms. And I'm assuming that means he's going to he's going to take the cars and the rock and roll stuff and move it over to the new building, right? And then spread out the war stuff, the military stuff, into the rest of that part of the main building, kind of separate the two collections. So the big question is then when you go to Dragon Man's, is it going to be the two are going to just go across and into the new building, or is it going to be two tours, like two different tours now? But very cool. Isn't it awesome to have like 80 acres and be able to do what you want? So if you look in front of him right now is the parking lot. But if we backed up a little bit, is he going to do drive around? I didn't watch the whole video, I guess. I thought you just talked about the thing and left. So in front of him there is the paintball. So if you go down in front of him here, this is all the paintball. Then there's the parking lot. There's the actual gun shop behind the dragon statue. If you drop down to the left, that other driveway was the main ranges, where most of the time you see ranges and stuff. It's right here shooting to the left, which is towards Colorado Springs to the west. Right now he's driving north, and he's going to open the main gates. I guess that's what he did. So he went and filmed that right before he opened the thing for the day. He goes out there with a loaded M60 to open his gates. That's a Dragon Man. If you go across the road, that's his bigger range, and if you go down the ways, there's another range, and then if you go down the driveway up about halfway, I think that's one of the off-road motorcycle tracks. He's got a couple of those. And pretty much you get there early and you wait in line. There's a big ass driveway with all the character stuff on it. And people just wait. There's a bunch of signs that say, if the gate's closed, don't come in here. And people just kind of stack up and wait. And then once it's open, I've been there once for this. I've been there twice for this. I was there like third in line because I got there in the middle of the night. Or maybe I was first. I got there in the middle of the night and I parked on the driveway, and then a couple other people showed up and then I got in line kind of thing. So I was like third one time, and then another time I kind of came in at the end of the people because I got there later. And then the other times I just drove in because it wasn't opening. But yeah, Dragon Man opens the gates and just waves at everybody coming in. It's Dragon Man, crying out loud. So Dragon Man is an experience and it's legit. It's the most authentic thing. So like if J.M. Davis was alive today, him and Dragon Man would hang out, I bet. So that's what the internet's for right there. People like Dragon Man doing amazing shit and then sharing it with everybody. People on X aren't going to participate or nothing. They're just going to watch, but, whatever. It's free country. That's how the way they're allowed to use the X program, I guess. All you have to do is make a comment. I'm going to go ahead and refresh just in case the comments don't just happen over there. Probably why my internet's so slaggy, because I've got like videos going. I got my own video going on top of itself for some reason, and X is playing the video now. So I've got like the same browser open 3 times playing the video, because StreamYard it plays also. Obviously, it's playing in the middle of StreamYard. No, nobody said anything on X, so we're just sitting here. More people are watching on X, so it must be the people come by and watch it for a moment or two on X, and they don't like being called out, and then they move on. All right, so now we're going to go down to... That was Dragon Man's Survivor, Season 1, Episode 1. You're going to blame Foss for this one. Ford Mutt, is that what he was driving? I just figured it was a Jeep. Right on. Yep, Dragon Man is pretty awesome. And he's just a healthy old dude, so he's going to be around for a bit. So we live in the era of Dragon Man. If you haven't gone to check out Dragon Man's, like that's on you. You have the ability to. I'm going to urge everyone to check out Dragon Man's at least once. But I personally will go out of my way and have gone out of my way by days. Like I'll drive an extra day to go hang out at Dragon Man's for a couple hours. All right, so getting ready for Memorial Day. That was that. He goes nuts on Memorial Day, and I'm not as much of a fan of going nuts on Memorial Day, but obviously Dragon Man's at a different level of memorial observation than regular people. All right, so Survivor, Season 1, Episode 1. Again, I was about to say, you can blame Foss for this one. He's the one that brought it up, but I pretty much checked out for 2 weeks watching that show constantly. I was hardly watching anything else besides this. I guess I technically did watch everything else also, but every other piece of my time that I had to just spend normally where I'd listen to a movie or something while I'm working on projects or doing something, I was watching the Survivor show. I really thought it was really neat. If you like Jericho, and if I didn't like Walking Dead. I only liked parts of Walking Dead that made it like a apocalyptic show. I didn't like the zombies, and I thought the show was stupid, and it got way too much into the drama and bullshit. But if it was, if it was just a show about people having to live in a crazy time, that part about it I liked. There was a show called Jeremiah, I think, that was also kind of a good one, because it offered a version of people having to live in the remains of what we got. So if you like those kind of shows, this one was from 1975, and it was on for a few years. So 1975 to 1977. And at some point when I got the time, 'cause it's not a priority or nothing, but before I forget it all, I watched all 3 seasons. I'm going to put out a sort of a book club thing. I'm going to put the show out there, put the challenge out there, because you can watch it for free. It's right here on YouTube. You can just watch it whenever you want. And there's other places to watch it. I guess there's no commercials on YouTube, I don't think. But anyhow, watch it when you want, and maybe in like a month or something, we'll do some sort of a get-together and chat about it. Because, 1, it's really good. 2, it was in the 70s, so it was way before some of the technology like GPS or some of the guns and things that we have now. So it's just different, and it's a more kind of interesting scenario to think about than some of the stuff we have now that, like battery chargers and stuff and solar panels and things that just make things a lot different. So it's neat to think about how those folks were able to survive compared to people now. Let's put it that way. Like, what they thought was being modern, we think of as being fairly primitive back in the 70s. So, and then how on point it is for 2024. It's crazy on point. In fact, I'm pretty sure they said woke in there. I'm almost positive they said woke in episode 3 or in season 3. So if anybody can find the part where he says woke, it's when the guy who's like the old guy is talking about eating Indian food. So there's an episode where somebody's making Indian food like curry or something, and the guy says woke. So that means woke has been around since like 1977. Anyway, I thought that was kind of neat. So it's a neat show. The cars are horrible. Spoiler, but there's a FAL in it, or there's a F1A1, whatever it is, the English version of a FAL. Occasionally, a lot of shotguns in it, and some crossbows. So anyway, it's a neat version of a Survivor show, and it's a drama. It's not like a game show I forgot that there's a game show called Survivors. It's nothing like that. Just the word Survivor, the premise is a virus takes out 400,999 out of 5,000 people. So only 1 out of 5,000 people survive this thing, and that happens in a week. So one day everybody's minding their business. The next week, only 1 out of 5,000 people are even alive. So that's like just random people. Almost no one who is alive ever knew each other. There's very rare circumstances where somebody is still alive who knows somebody else who's still alive. So essentially the world is just mostly empty. Nothing was destroyed except for like car crashes and whatever when people died, in the midst of using heavy machinery or something. But for the most part, the world is just sitting there, and there's no zombies or anything stupid, but there's all the situations that you would expect with that kind of a crazy amount of surplus and strife and stress and disassociation. There's a really neat premise, and then it goes 3 seasons. So maybe a few years into this scenario, and it's all about England, so it's weird. But anyway, so stay tuned for whenever I have a chance to maybe take this clip out of this show and turn it into a video, and then use that into a challenge, and then give people like a month to watch it, because it's real. It's 40-minute long episodes, and there's 13 episodes. So each season is something like 10 hours of watching shows. Coming up here again, little guy, a little co-host. Come here. Oh my goodness. He needs to be picked up. He's too little and tired to jump up. Too little. A lot of podcasts, you have to take a break in the middle of the show to give your co-host a bunch of kissies. It's no big deal. Just stopped in the middle of the show, picked up my co-host, and gave him a bunch of kissies. All right, so the next thing is, here's another thing that's interesting about this show. This little dog could care less about pretty much everything I watch on the TV. and it happens right there. He watches TV. Right behind this other monitor is the TV. And so he's heard all kinds of different stuff happen on the TV. Laser blasts and monsters making noises. But in that Survivor show, there's a whole bunch of dogs. One of the, not even a spoiler, but one of the enemies that people have are these wild dog packs that go around giving people rabies and stuff. And since they have no guns in England, there's nothing they can do about them except get bit. So anytime the dogs are in that show, this dog goes nuts. I should have queued it up to show you how nuts he goes, but I'm pretty sure they're speaking some sort of an English dog speak, and he's down with it. He understands them, and he's yelling back some kind of stuff to him. But he never freaked out that much, except for a couple of things. This is the major thing that he freaks out about is the dogs in that show. But speaking of dogs in that show, I got to quit clicking on these things. This is a commercial, but beyond the commercial, the Arizona Game and Fish has reintroduced the Mexican wolf into most of Arizona, I think. But it's neat because, well, some people can't handle predators, but for people that can handle predators, they only have so much gene pool. And since there's only so many of them, there's like definitely few wolves. It's all a matter of figuring out messing with their genes so that they don't get weird. So they foster them at zoos and things, and then they have it all set up to where they've got it down now. But they'll essentially, what this guy's saying is they'll take, like, let's say there's 3 baby puppies, and that coincide with 3 baby pup. Let's say there's 6 baby puppies at a zoo somewhere, little wolves being born at a zoo, and those are new genetics, right? They'll take those 3 puppies or 6 puppies, and they'll take 3 and 3 and find coinciding natural dens. And if you drop 3 puppies in on a wild mom wolf, she'll just take them and run and grow them up. So they can introduce these new bloodlines from zoos into the pups. What do they call a bunch of puppies? A bunch of wolf puppies. A pack? Into the packs, or whatever they are. And the moms will grow them up. And now they can monitor. They know where all the pups are. They have collars on them and stuff. So they're tracking the genetics as well as just the population. And I don't know, pretty interesting to see that stuff. Again, if you're not scared of predators. Pause that, open this back up, and I'll try to quit opening up the same page all the time because it takes a pain in the butt to get back here and find the rest of it. So let's see, then we'll go to the 2A radio shows. There's essentially 2 of them, 2 shows that I listen to each week, if I can help it. And they're both, 2 of them are on Sunday, so it's tough. I don't get to listen to stuff on Sunday as much. But Gun Owners Radio is on in the afternoons for most people, maybe the early evening, depending on how far into the metric time zones you go. But Gun Owners Radio is San Diego Gun Owners, and that's Gun Owners Rights Group in Southern California. And they have been doing amazing stuff, both locally and just to lead the way for other groups. Like they do a lot of good, innovative stuff, including like the Gun Prom, the symposiums. They do a lot of organizations will offer information, voters guides, and guides on the different people who are being elected. But Gun Owners Radio really is not leading, but at the head of the pack as far as being effective with their voters guides and their candidates information. So they do a lot of stuff that's both politically useful and has changed laws, created awareness, and they do it in a way that's both open source. They don't hide what they're doing. They describe it each week at this radio show I'm talking about. And then on top of it all, they go live and have a radio show, which is effectively for entertainment. Like it is the Gun Owners Rights Group that is the radio show, but they talk about grip angles and red dot optics and all the stuff that people care about just in general, and then have guests and stuff. So It's definitely more of an entertainment type of podcast, but with the support being from the what matters and about what matters. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. They have a gun show coming up this weekend. So if you happen to be in the San Diego area, it's happening right now. The gun show is happening right now. Mike White 2A activism might be there as we speak. He's not in the chat right now, so yeah, he might be there. He might have been there this weekend at least. It's $500 for me to drive over there, so I was not able to do it. Although it would have been fun to check out a different California gun show. The last one was a little bit different because it was in San Diego. This one's just outside of San Diego, technically. So it should be a different type of gun show. Anyway, they have a show on Sundays each week, and it's worth a listen. They talk about, like, say, a bunch of things that it's a well-rounded podcast with enough input from the co-hosts that there's a little bit for everybody. And it's 2 hours long, an hour and a half or 2 hours long. So it's a decent sized show. Then we have Cape Gun Works, or Rapid Fire Radio out of Massachusetts. And I only put one of them in here, but Toby goes live on Sundays on a radio show in Massachusetts. That's like an hour, 45 minutes or something with the commercials. Then on Tuesdays, he does a 45-minute segment of the Grace Curley show called 2A Tuesday. That's what I linked to this week. And then on Wednesdays, they host their podcast or radio show for 2 hours. And ever since I first found him, I've been enjoying that show. Toby's able to talk about guns, no problem. He owns a gun shop for a number of years. I understand he's been a gun owner his whole life, so he's got the gun stuff down. We don't agree 100% like on little dumb minor things, but he definitely knows what he's talking about. And owns a gun shop, so he's constantly aware, like he's up to date or current on his info. But then because he lives in Massachusetts behind enemy lines, he's super fluent in getting kick-crapped out of their rights all the time and motivating people to just be aware but be active in that fight. So I think he does a great job of balancing what could be a completely Massachusetts-centric show, if you think about it, because it's in Massachusetts and they really are getting pummeled on constantly. But in spite of that, Toby makes it a show that's useful for the whole country. Like, he doesn't, if they do talk about Massachusetts, it's focused and then it moves on. It doesn't take away from all the other stuff they're talking about. So really good shows to listen to, and supporting a good project, a great gun shop, privately owned, not some kind of weird corporate thing owned by Canada or something, but a actual gun shop that's happening in a part of the country that we'd be better off if we had more awareness of gun and gun owners and stuff. So great project, worth checking out as well. All right, and let's see, is there any other radio shows that I've been listening to? I feel like I'm missing something there, but again, I'm not going to apologize. I just didn't have time to fill out this thing this week. Then we get to the gun calendars. One of the projects that our Patreons, down here at the bottom of the screen, that says our Patreons make it possible for projects like this, or they say this says our Patreons make projects like this possible. Thank you. And then there's a link to our Patreon, which is essentially patreon.com/gunwebsites. And we appreciate the people that subscribe to what we do. Those people that consider this either like a magazine or like a online subscription, or just want to be part of the projects that we do. We're not on any kind of recipe. We cut new trails. We do things. We don't just watch other people did and do it again. We do it, with 2020 hindsight. We're constantly building stuff. We've been building stuff, for example, like this site. Probably, I think we went back and looked, was it 2011 or something? I grabbed gun calendars, and we're not selling calendars over here. This is just a bunch of different types of calendars and different ways to archive stuff, like things that matter to us as Second Amendment activists, or I would say people that care about the United States, because I do have quite a few like military and other important events and holidays in here. But mostly it's focused on gun stuff, of course. So anyway, let's take a look at it. Thanks to our Patreons for making it possible. We're at the end of the month. So as you can see, tomorrow is June 1st. Right? Saturday? Yeah, Saturday will be June 1st. And that'll be Thunder on the Prairie's first day, I guess, although I thought it started today. And Thunder on the Prairie is an event that's in its 4th year, I think, up in Nebraska. I know you're thinking Nebraska, it's one of the panhandle states, but no, they contribute. They have Thunder on the Prairie hosted every year. They bring a bunch of people from gun channels and others to Nebraska, and they shoot at a place called the Nebraska Shooters in Firth, Nebraska. This was set up by Defense Dad and Travis P. And a bunch of people show up. Gizzard drives up. That's why he didn't do his show, he says. Barbecue went all the way over there from Pennsylvania this year. DJ drives about 15 minutes over to it. And am I crazy, or is Foss there also? So pretty much everybody we know that does a lot of live shows, except for She Fires, is out there right now. Like I said, I was thinking about it. Van couldn't handle it, so maybe next year if I can get the van running or something, or get a new van or something. But let's see. Going on, we have the anniversary of D-Day coming up. What? Oh, yeah, D-Day. I'm thinking of a different day. I was thinking of Pearl Harbor. So D-Day is coming up on the 6th. Roland White is the person credited with inventing the bored-through cylinder. Smith & Wesson bought that patent, or, used his patent to make the first revolver, to produce the first revolver with a bored-through cylinder. Roland White had to fight that patent abuse for Smith & Wesson effectively. Now, whether or not Smith & Wesson did that to him, or if it happened and what was Smith & Wesson supposed to do about it, like, were they supposed to know? I don't know. That would have been an interesting thing to find out about. I don't know if anybody's ever written a book about that, but that's why Roland White is in here. He's got a pretty interesting contribution, and he just got wailed on. Like, that guy never made a dime, if I remember right. He might have died poor, even though he created the whole idea of boring through a cylinder. They haven't even invented cartridges yet, really. But he's like, what if you just bored through the cylinder? Think about how much better a revolver is that you can put bullets through the back than having to stuff them through the front. Nobody had thought about boring through that cylinder and using a cartridge until him. And then Smith & Wesson were like, well, dang, we just made the 22 short, the first cartridge. Let's put 2 and 2 together. Let's put that guy's peanut butter and our chocolate together, and the rest is history. The best handgun ever made, the revolver, was started right there. Anyway, then we got Blade Show coming up next weekend. So when you're listening to this, it probably happened last weekend. So that's how it is with the podcast. But you also have the anniversary of the first National Conference on the Shooting Sports back in 1960. If I remember the history right, there was an era in the 1960s where there was regional shows for shooting sports, for guns, for hunting, for competition, and for whatever else people wanted guns for back in the day. But for essentially what SHOT Show is, for shops and for people that are interested, for manufacturers, for writers, and for others to get together to have essentially what we have at SHOT Show, an industry event. There was many of them regional, and people were getting frustrated to which ones should I attend? Which ones do the manufacturers attend? Well, if you were a person and you wanted to meet with 3 companies, but each of those companies went to a different regional event, then you'd have to go to 3 events to meet all 3 companies. And that was, I guess, frustrating for people in 1960. So this first national conference on the shooting sports happened. And one of the people at that meeting said, what if we did this every year? And that organization became NSSF, and that event became SHOT Show. So that all happened in 1960. I think SHOT Show didn't start until 1981 or something. Maybe I'm wrong. It was 64 or something. I don't remember. But that's the kind of fun stuff you can get when you dig into history. Now we're going to move ahead into next month and see what all we got over here. For people that are listening to this as a podcast, Julianne Versnell, which is essentially Alan Gottlieb's wife, his birthday is coming up. She's done quite a bit in the realm of Second Amendment activism, being another person in the Second Amendment Foundation and the Citizens Committee to Keep and Bear Arms, which is the parent organization of many organizations that SAF, or Second Amendment Foundation, has put together over the years. And Julianne is the president of like half of those. So, yeah, there's a lot of organizations there. Julianne is the boss of a bunch of them. And a lot of times she'll kind of host the gun rights policy conference for the last few years also. So she's definitely involved in 2A and has been for quite a while. And sometimes behind the scenes, I guess, and then more and more less behind the scenes, I guess. We've got a couple of anniversaries coming up for hunting with suppressors. I like to keep those in there. One, because I started doing this calendar as these things were happening, but then I keep them in there because they're nice. It's like seeing the mile markers on the road if you're on a long trip. Seeing those mile markers, they don't help you, but at the same time, seeing them constantly go by lets you know that you're making progress, even though the terrain might be pretty similar. You know that you're moving. So having these things in the calendars lets us know that we've made tremendous efforts, and that it's easy to take for granted the efforts that others had done before, especially when we weren't involved in those efforts. And we all do this. It's not like it's a negative thing. It's just the nature of a lot of people being involved in the world. You know, we have to take for granted things that are just, you know, sometimes amazing. And the fact that we're able to, the fact that we're in the circumstances we're in are not accidental. They're not the consequence of doing nothing in any means. Like, they're actually the consequence of a lot of action by a lot of people over a lot of time. So that's what the calendar is all about, is to keep that out there, keep that information out there. That being said, it's the anniversary, or the 11th of June is the anniversary of John Wayne's passing at 72 years old. I guess a lot of people don't like John Wayne anymore, but I'm definitely a big fan of John Wayne movies. There's like 176 of them or something. I've seen pretty much all of them. Not quite all of them, maybe 140 of them. Let's see. Then we get the National Defense Act signed in 1916. There's a giant cartridge show, like an ammunition collector's show. I write the calendar, so I'm going to put the stuff that I like in here for sure. So I keep putting those in there because one day I'll be able to get to one. I haven't been to one yet. Just seen pictures, but once these bills are paid off and I'm on the road again, I'll be back. I'll be going to these cartridge shows. I don't know if there's not that many people that are interested in a YouTube channel that's about ammo collecting, but guess what's going to happen when I can drive around and visit stuff again? Ammo collecting. Oh, I can't wait. So the Army's birthday is coming up. We're the oldest. All the other entities are younger than us. So Army, 1775. Everybody else can suck it. Tokroff, born on June 14th, back in 1871. Tokroff was, of course, his own pistol, but he was also part of the SVT-40. Really cool rifle. At least I thought it was a cool rifle. Let's see. Then we got Flag Day coming up on the 14th of June. A lot of people don't give a shit about the flag. In fact, there's quite a few weak, mild people that flipped a flag upside down and were so bold as to put an upside down flag on their social medias as a frustrated, weak struggle against the news. Like, oh, the news is so bad, I'm going to sacrifice my country's honor. So right after Memorial Day too, real classy, real strong. Weak ass move, real flexible, weak, rubbery move by those people to flip a flag upside down. Between Memorial Day and Flag Day, very patriotic. It's the same people that got to have a flag every time they fucking do a video. They got to have flags behind them because they're so patriotic that at the first time that the news gives them a little bit of shit, they flip their flag upside down like a bunch of bitches. Anyway, I have Flag Day in here twice, so I got to fix that, I guess. Then we got Father's Day coming up on Sunday after Flag Day. Guess what? Most of us have a father somewhere around. So appreciate the people that probably don't get appreciated very often. Talk about taking things for granted. Outdoor retailer is kind of like SHOT Show, but for surplus, for sporting goods stores. So instead of having guns or hunting or anything like that, they'll have some of the people from SHOT Show or from NRA Show, but it'll be the knives and it'll be the like backpacks and people that have, nylon gear like backpacks, knife sharpeners. It'll be the stuff that's applicable to us, to a camping store. So instead of guns, though, there's a bunch of like kayaks and tents. So it's a pretty fun show to attend. We used to attend it back in the olden days. We'll be attending it for sure going forward. Maybe a year or two when I get back on the road. We'll probably be going to Outdoor Retailer again. It's a super fun show. There's just no guns. And it's in Salt Lake City again. It used to be in Denver, so I miss those years. But Salt Lake City is an awesome town to visit if you haven't been there. We have the anniversary on June 19th. And again, I'm going pretty far into the future because the people that are listening to this on a podcast, this is like next Wednesday for them. But on June 19th, we have the, well, of course, Juneteenth is now, I think, official as a holiday coming out of Texas. But it's also that day, June 19th, is the anniversary of the adoption of the 1903 Springfield. Back in the olden days, back in 1903, and the same day is the anniversary of the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968, which essentially, I can't remember exactly, but there was like 3 gun control things that hit us all at the same time in 1968, and collectively we call them the 1968 Gun Control Acts. This is essentially the anniversary of it coming up on the 19th. The next day is the anniversary of Neil Knox being born. We just had a bit of a coup at the NRA annual meetings with the reform delegates getting elected, even in front of the crony, what's his name, Wayne LaPierre's old friends. One or two got elected, but the reform candidates all got elected and got more votes than any of the old crew. Neil Knox is the dad of Jeff Knox, one of the people that got elected to the reform of the NRA. And of course, Chris Knox, who wrote the book, are his sons. And Neil is the dude who was responsible for the 1977 revolt at the NRA, which kept the NRA from moving from Washington to New Mexico back in 1977. And this year, NRA put on the agenda to move from Virginia to Texas, and that was rejected, even in Texas. Let's see, then we have the anniversary on the same day, the anniversary of William Fairbairn from the knife and instruction fame. So it's a pretty cool dude who essentially did a bunch of things back in the old days in Taiwan, in Shanghai. He was a gang officer, gang riot control in Shanghai pre-World War II. Been stabbed and shot a number of times before World War II as a police officer dealing with that stuff. So when they developed hand-to-hand fighting styles and combat training for World War II, him and Fairbairn and I can't think of the other guy's name. Anyway, those guys are the ones that invented hand-to-hand combat, essentially. And all the Marines that exist today, all the Marines that have ever existed, are taught with this guy's hand-to-hand style. So, super cool guy, and he passed away at 75 years old in 1960. We have a lot of stuff because this is what it's like when the calendar is actually full instead of like the last couple of weeks or months, I guess. It's been sparse because I only have so much time to devote to these things. But as you can see, thanks to our Patreons in past years, June is a month where I have a lot of stuff in here. So getting to June 21st, which is probably when some people are listening to this as a podcast, this is the day that the baby Browning, the little 25 ACP pocket Browning was patented. And 1909, I found a new channel on X that of historic gun, either articles or advertisements or references in books and things. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. They did not build millions of 25 ACP pocket guns and people didn't put them in their pockets. Like, they bought those guns to put them in their pockets, and all of our grandmas and grandpas were carrying those things around in their pockets. At least maybe our great grandmas and grandpas, since it's from 1909. But to suggest that FN and Browning, it developed and built and in Browning in the first place, even invented the 25 ACP and then wrapped that little tiny gun around it. He built that because he knew people wanted that little gun. There was a ton of little revolvers already, and he built a better little gun, or different little gun. And they built millions of them. They didn't build millions of them because people bought them and threw them away. They bought them because people bought them and put them in their pockets. So to suggest that people hadn't been walking around since 1909 with little tiny pocket pistols in their pocket is fake. Like, all we have to do is look at history. And I put these things in here to kind of slap us in the face every once in a while to remember that since 1909, people have carried around little pistols in their pockets. So it's a normal thing. Guns are normal. Since the invention of the thing, people have carried them around. And before that, it was little revolvers. And before that, it was little tiny flintlocks, like little tiny single shot, well, cap locks, not flintlocks, but I guess flintlocks before that. So there's always been tiny guns because people have always carried guns around. We keep thinking, we get told that defensive firearms use is a new phenomenon. It's only a reawakened phenomenon that we've removed restrictions on it, but it's always been a thing. This country existed and it was always protected. And then the Overton window was moved in the 1960s, and it was slowly moved. And in one generation, we became unaccustomed to it. In that same generation, we're becoming accustomed to it again, and people are acting like it's a new thing. No, it's a thing that's always existed that was taken away recently, and we're finally getting it right back again, or we're taking it right back. Let's see. We also have the anniversary of Thompson passing away in 1940. Browning's dad, Jonathan Browning. So there's John Browning and there's Jonathan Browning. John Browning's dad, Jonathan Browning, passed away on June 21st back in 1879. And then we have Ruger being born back in 1916. So quite a few anniversaries happening on the 21st. We get in the 22nd, Saturday. We have the beginning of the OFAST shoot, which is the Oklahoma Full Auto Shoot and Trade Show. Our friends up in Oklahoma, just north of Tulsa, host this show now since I've been doing stuff, since like the early 2000s. They've been hosting that show, maybe 2006 or 8 or 6 even. I forget when Mike started that, but Mike Friend from Firing Line started doing that show. I've never been able to get to it, but again, hopefully once we get traveling again, we'll be able to stay on the road for a bit and check that out. We have the anniversary of the Law Enforcement Officers Protection Act. Recently that was updated, but back in 1968, I think it was 1986, I think, is when that one got passed. And it essentially is why police officers can carry anywhere once they're retired. I think that's part of that. All right, well, last thing we'll talk about is the Coast Guard Auxiliary has a birthday coming up on the 23rd of June, and there's plenty of more stuff over at the gun calendars. I'm sure we're losing a lot of audience because I'm getting too far into the future here. But again, I do this let me know if I'm doing it wrong, but I do this because the podcast doesn't get posted on the Podbean until 2 weeks from now. Maybe I'll flip it around and get it to where I post this a week late, but right now it's 2 weeks late because of that gives me the most flexibility to be able to do other things besides the podcast. So, but give me some feedback. I know the people on Twitter who I keep challenging to give me some feedback refuse to give me some feedback, but maybe those podcast folks, listeners, will give me some feedback since I'm speaking directly to them right now. I don't know if people on YouTube, let me go check my numbers. Oh, pretty much everybody left YouTube. Everybody's listening on X right now. Almost nobody's even listening on YouTube. How weird is that? I probably shouldn't have even figured out that I can look at this thing. Milsurp is saying, morning from France. Oh, dang. You went the wrong way for Thunder on the Prairie. It was the prairie in Nebraska. I know that the panhandle can throw you off. Makes maps really hard to read. But it was actually, Thunder on the Prairie is actually happening in Nebraska. But since you're in France, hopefully you'll have a good time. Since you're there, might as well make the most of it. Yeah, thanks for checking in. I don't know if we've had anybody check in from France in years. If they have, they haven't said it. How about that? So I have no idea what time it is in France. It is 11 o'clock p.m. in Arizona. 80th anniversary of D-Day. Right on. Very cool. We just talked about that. That's coming up in just a few days. I didn't realize it was the 80th anniversary. I know some people that do parachute jumps, so I'm assuming there's going to be some parachute jumps on that day. Let's see. So then we get past the gun calendars portion of the show. We start talking about the military interviews. So there's a bunch of different shows that are hosted by military veterans that are focused on stories of military veterans mostly, but then they'll, depending on the show, they'll range to different things. It's 8 o'clock in the morning there. Very cool. I mean, I won't remember that, but it is interesting. So it's not like you're up at like 3 in the morning to have to listen to this show. So there's no excuse. People in France could be listening to this on a Saturday morning, and instead they're sitting around eating cheese and champagne and thinking about buildings to make out of metal. Let's see. So we've got the first military interview is, I think that was Team House last week, going after the death cults in Iraq with an Apache helicopter pilot. One of the shows is actually hosted by an Apache helicopter pilot, and it's definitely been interesting to watch him interview other Apache helicopter pilots. And then there's definitely been other Apache pilots on, but this was a good interview. This guy, I'm trying to remember because I've been watching so many other things this week, but pretty sure this guy did some other stuff first and then became a pilot, like you hear a lot. So he had an interesting story. And kind of frustrating too. I mean, it's interesting to listen to these things, but when you think about how much money it costs for helicopters to be in the air, for a good long time, we didn't use Apaches for anything. You could just fly an Apache in and everybody'd book it, and that was the end of it. So it's good, I guess, because you didn't need to kill anybody, but at the same time, it cost $1 million to fly in and scare a bunch of people. We got to do what we got to do with what's available sometimes, but 2020 hindsight makes you go, dang, $1 million to scare a bunch of people away. There's got to be other ways to scare a bunch of people away. And it's got to be frustrating as hell for Apache pilots. You don't just decide to get in your Apache helicopter and fly around. It's hours worth of prep time, and then you're up there doing stuff, and then it's hours worth of after action and prep time. I think this one had the story about they dropped a helicopter to kind of collect fire from somebody who was getting shot, ground troops or something. So they just dropped a helicopter down to take a bunch of fire. So barely limped that helicopter home. Everybody was safe or whatever. I think it worked out all right, but how much does it cost to fix that helicopter? Not saying they shouldn't have done it. I'm just saying, like, it can be frustrating when you think about how much it costs for some of these things. They didn't really talk about that in this interview, but I couldn't help but think about it when I was listening to some of it. But there's been a bunch more. I haven't got them all listed here, but this week was a pretty good one. It was another good week. It was a guy from the CIA on Team House, which isn't as interesting to me, but they definitely like it. They really like that guy, and that's fun to watch the guys who are hosts of shows that you've seen a bunch of times really enjoy an interview. But Ed Calderon had a great part 3 to a 3-parter, so that was a good one worth listening to. And well, I've been listening to that. Dang, what's the name of that one? I was just watching it too. I've been watching some new one where they're talking about border stuff on the border, and I think we just started at the beginning of the show talking about the cartels have not switched but diversified into call center telemarketing scams of old people in the United States. We don't think about it enough, or at least I don't see it come up in conversation enough. So I'm assuming people aren't thinking about it, but that baby boom generation that we all talk about, the boomers, right? That's because of baby boom. And that was called a baby boom because after World War II, everybody came home and started having babies at unprecedented rates. So the largest population swell in history is the baby boomers. Sounds neat. Okay, thanks. But think about that. That's a shit ton of people that buy stuff. And they all bought cereal at the same time. And now we have cereal. They all bought TVs at the same time, and now we have TVs. Like, a lot of the stuff we have is because somebody said, dang, there's a whole generation of these kids, and all we got to do is sell it to them, and their parents are going to buy it. And a shit ton of the stuff that we have today is because of those baby boomers. So it's foolish to think that that innovation isn't going to keep going. So, anyway, we're gonna. I was trying to remember what the heck I was even talking about to get going on that one, but I was talking about the CIA one, and yeah, I forgot what I was chatting about with that one. Who else was on this week? Yeah, I should probably just look at I can't look at my history is the problem. I watch these shows on a different computer, so they're not on my history. That's why I almost always miss them on here. But it was a good week for them. I made time to listen to them. And, it was the, talking about the, is it Ironclad? It's talking about the cartels that have switched to scamming. So we have this massive population of old people that are aging, and they're going to become more and more vulnerable. They don't know technology. Think about old people. What do they know about technology? Like they're just not even paying attention. They don't care. They don't want to pay attention, right? So anyway, the cartels have figured out that they're vulnerable, and they have really started laying into them big time. So there was an interesting, I think it's called Ironclad. I might be missing the thing. I didn't write it down. But a pretty interesting one that just came out yesterday or today that I was just listening to earlier today. Finishing up earlier today. So lots of good military interview shows. Again, I can't recommend them enough. Not only do you hear the person's stories, which are almost always interesting, that's why they have them on the shows. Often these people have described their situation more than a couple of times, so they're getting pretty good at having these conversations. The different hosts either having similar life experiences, like two SEALs talking to each other, are a different conversation than, a Navy guy and an Army guy, because when they're familiar with each other, they can talk about their shared experiences and comparisons to those. But when they don't know each other, there's a whole nother level of questions that are asked and explanations that are given. So it really is interesting, even when the guests are sometimes shared amongst the different shows, to listen to these different conversations and the insight that you get about just through the perspective of the wars, but of the things that have happened over the last decades. Definitely worth your time. So if you're enjoying listening to stuff online, then I'm going to recommend adding some military interviews, or at least shows hosted by military vets, into your whatever you call it, like your schedules. Then we'll finally get to what we did this week. We did a couple of shows. Last week, Tony was at Train and Learn. So tomorrow we'll be doing a recap of Train and Learn during the Ask Gun Questions. So, it's Ask Gun Questions, but it's kind of also just me and Tony's podcast. So I'm a big fan of Train and Learn. He's gone to Train and Learn almost every year. So we're going to be chatting about that. But since he wasn't there last week, I decided to spend some time putting together a map of the different events that are happening for the rest of the year, just for shits and giggles, because I think I did a project a while back where I decided what would happen if you drove to all these events, but that just talked about the events and how much it would cost to drive between them. No one's actually going to drive between them. There's no national level organizations making tens of millions of dollars that are offering to send people to these things that are willing to go. But I figured, why not put it in a map just to see where all these different events are happening. And then some things like Dragon Man's, that are more than just an event. So anyway, put that together. I did about 30% of it live, and then spent a couple more hours the rest of the day watching Suicide Prevention Saturday and some other stuff. And then we did a show on parasocial relationships. I was watching something totally unrelated to guns, I think. And somebody in there talked about these parasocial relationships. And I don't know if I've ever heard anyone define them before, but it's essentially the relationship that you have across a medium, like, back in the old days, the radio or the television. and nowadays the internet. And I figured it was worth putting some insight into that. Not that I have much to add because it's all new to me and I'm not a clinician or any whatever the word is. Like, I'm not an expert at this stuff. But I feel like the fact that it's a thing means that some people are using it against us, and we should know as consumers, as listeners, right? Like, that we're not being abused by this or taken advantage of with these techniques. And two, that if we're creating content, that we're not resorting or, lowering ourselves to these manipulative techniques and shit, so that we can move this fucking thing. Let's get this over. Let's normalize guns. Let's end the stupid debates so that people can go, oh yeah, guns aren't dangerous. People are just able to be around dangerous things. And these people that are having either, problems and need some help, or are living in a situation where drugs are their only option for financial end. Let's solve those things. And then guess what? All the gun violence goes away. All of it goes away. If I was going to be doing the section of the show today about the 2A stuff, what I did look at from NSSF, I'd have been ranting about NSSF patting themselves on the damn back again for complaining about gun owners. When if you look at numbers, like I say, I found a new place on X, a new channel or whatever it's called on X that posts a lot of data. And as I suspected, because every time I see numbers on gun deaths, accidental gun deaths are all but negligent, and that's all happened in our lifetimes, and none of it has been by threat, none of it has been by regulation, and none of it has been by nagging. It's all been by everybody knows that guns are dangerous, and we teach each other to not be dangerous with guns. It's literally as simple as the same reason cars don't explode. But NSSF insists on nagging us about it and slapping us over the wrist, like if somehow the fact that it still happens is a fault of ours, when they instead could be moving the ball forward by championing us from the rooftops how safe gun owners are, and no one needed to tell us to be. But they're so happy about saying that they tell us to be. I don't get into it. So anyway, I love NSSF, but I also don't love NSSF for some of the dumb things they do. And that's what I would have been chatting about if we would have delved into that earlier. All right, well, we don't have to delve into that. Instead, let's talk about the podcast. You go listen to the podcast over on the Podbean, and we'd appreciate it, because if you leave a like or a heart or one of those things, that lets the mechanisms know, that the robots out there know that this was interesting to someone, and maybe they should recommend it to more someone's. So that's a free and easy way that you can help not just our channel, but Professor Yamane, if you appreciate what he's doing, Brooke Cheney, if you appreciate what she's doing. If there's one of those organizations that you pay $30 a month to and they make tens of millions of dollars a year, if you want to help one of those organizations out, repost their stuff. Anything that you appreciate, you can repost. Anything that you value, you have the influence. This is an internet. This is an internet connection of our activities and our metrics. So guess what? Even if you don't do any of that stuff, your eyeballs are counted. How long you've been sitting here watching the screen got counted. It would have been nice if you would have said something like over on the Twitter, actually commented. Dozens and dozens of people watching on the Twitter or the X, whatever they like to call it. Not one of them commented. Imagine if people would comment over there. Over here on the YouTube, look how appreciative people are. Comment from France, for crying out loud, while on vacation. Comment all over the place. So thanks to the people that are participating and using the interactive nature of the internet, we're truly evolving communication beyond dissemination of opinion, dissemination of one position, or the dissemination of propaganda. Instead, we're creating that, next, which is conversation, real, authentic. And there's some dog nuts in it every once in a while. I try to not have his nuts in it whenever possible, but he just doesn't seem to care, so it happens. All right, well, with that, since nobody's saying anything, I've been giving people plenty of opportunity to say something over on the Twitter. Nothing. Not one comment at all. It's as if the people on Twitter don't use their hands. They decide not to use their hands. They're just going to watch and judge, quietly watch and judge what happens, but not participate or get involved. Appreciate the people on the YouTube that do, and guess what? All the people that are listening in the future as a podcast, you have the opportunity to be more involved in the show than the Twitter people have been. I'm going to go ahead and give this co-host, a couple more squishes and wiggles. Maybe another chunk of cheese. Let's just grab another chunk of this cheese out of here. Should we let him have as much of a cheese bite as he wants, or should we cut off a little piece of cheese and just give him that little nibble of cheese? Come on, buddy. You can't eat cheese faster than that. I guarantee you Mello would not have waited this long to take all this cheese from me. It's not that he's polite. He's not capable of eating this cheese that fast. There, he ate a piece of cheese. Look at all that eating, and that's all the cheese he was eating. It's like having a little tiny mouse nibbling on the cheese or something. He's making enough noise you'd think that he'd eaten all the cheese. All right. I've been told by people that make a lot of money from the industry, that take a lot of money from the industry, and they tell me I shouldn't even have a dog on the show. So I probably shouldn't just let the dog devour a piece of oily cheese at the end of the show. But you never know. People on X aren't saying not to do it. So that's the same thing as kind of saying to do it, right? This dog is fully satisfied with cheese in this side of his body. Later on, we'll be experiencing the stinky side of the cheese. Hope everybody had a great show. And for Woods, who may still not be watching, we have some Japanese mayonnaise in a squishy bottle if you're interested. 500 grams. It's in metric, just what you'd expect. 500 grams of squishy mayonnaise in a bag. Anybody's interested. That you hear that other dog? She doesn't make noises very often, but when you give one of the dogs a bunch of cheese, the other dog is going to make a noise. We have to give that dog some cheese. This is like a dog push-up, except that it's cheese instead of sherbet. Look, Mello didn't even hesitate. Half that cheese is already missing. Almost lost my fingers. She ate half the plastic. She doesn't just gum at it like this dog. Here's the thing. I'm going to be feeding these dogs some cheese one way or the other. I might as well leave the camera on. It's a special ASMR treat for the people listening as a podcast. A lot of other podcasts that are focused on Second Amendment awareness, they don't even bother having ASMR cheese eaten at the end. Thanks to our co-host. Every show. He's like, every show we could eat cheese at the end of the show. He'd be all right with that. All right, well, thanks for all the super chats. Thanks for all the support. Thanks to the Patreons who make it possible for us to be here. And we'll be back tomorrow with Tony. I guess we'll take some commercials from Foss. I don't want anybody to blame the people that are at Thunder on the Prairie for not going live and sharing the experience. Maybe they're not able to. Maybe they've all lost their phones. They don't know how their phones work. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong screen right here. This guy used to go live on Fridays.
This is Earl Benson reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Foul Territory Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central. Wednesday, 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.
Oh my goodness. 7 more people on the X and not one comment still.
Sir, why are you in Barry's fishing net? He ran right into it. Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty apes! First off, that is incredibly rude. You ran straight into Barry's fishing net. It's ruined. How is Barry gonna fish now? I'm just trying to find some patches and some stickers. Well, all you have to do is go to gearwebsites.com and you can find 2A-related stickers and patches. And even if you need web consulting, technology consulting, 3D printing, anything like that, gearwebsites.com. Now, please get out of the net. I'm sorry. Jerk.
AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions.